Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Grab a drink, silence your phone, because what you're about to hear, you won't forget. The worst day of my life started in aisle 6 at a hardware store. I wasn't chasing drama. I wasn't replaying old wounds. I just needed AA batteries. That's it. I was standing there, half asleep, holding a half-full cart, when I heard a voice behind me say, "Edgar?" And I swear my spine forgot how to work. No one had called me that name like that in years. Soft, hesitant, and a little guilty. I turned around, and there she was. Melanie, my ex-wife, the woman who once promised forever, then ghosted me after an affair with a married man and left me with a mortgage, 2 confused cats, and a shattered sense of reality. I should have walked away. I should have turned on my heel and gone straight to checkout. But I froze. She looked older. Not in a bad way, just softer, different. Like the city finally got tired of her too. And the first thing she said, "Do you ever think about us?" Not "hi," not "I'm sorry," not even "long time no see." Just straight into that. The last time I saw her, she was stuffing dresses into a suitcase, muttering about how I was emotionally boring, and that Patrick, her affair partner, made her feel like a woman again. Patrick, of course, was married, with twins. I bet his wife really loved that detail. Melanie had left me in a whisper, like vanishing smoke. One day we were arguing over Thai food orders. The next, she was gone. New phone, new apartment, new life. I hadn't seen her in 15 years. And now here she was, holding a cart full of designer throw pillows and LED strip lights, asking if I thought about us. I laughed. Not because it was funny, more because my brain had no idea what else to do. I think I said something like, "You think aisle 6 is the place for that conversation?" And then she said it. The sentence that would unravel everything I thought I'd left behind. "I need to tell you something about back then. About Patrick, and me, and you." I didn't reply. I just stared at her. Because if I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure if words or rage or heartbreak would come out. And then she added, "It's about why I left, and why I'm back." So yeah, that's how it started. Not with a discovery, not with a breakup, but with batteries, and aisle 6, and a voice I thought I'd never hear again. What came next? Let's just say, the affair was only the start of the lies. I didn't respond right away. I just stood in my living room, phone pressed against my ear, staring blankly out the window like the trees outside might somehow help me understand what I was hearing. Melanie's voice trembled slightly, but not in the way someone grieves a man they loved. No, this was something else. It sounded like fear, guilt, maybe even desperation. And I wanted to believe she was acting, that this was some elaborate performance. But her voice cracked when she said it again. "Patrick's dead, Edgar, and it's not what you think." I finally spoke. I didn't think anything. "You vanished, remember? You never gave me the chance." She went quiet for a second. I could hear her breathing, slow and uneven. "He wasn't who he said he was. I thought I left you for love, but it turned into something else. Something I couldn't get out of." I laughed, sharp and cold. "You're telling me the married man you left me for was a bad boyfriend? That's your big twist?" "No," she said quickly. "I'm telling you he was dangerous. Controlling. He isolated me from everyone. He told me if I ever contacted you, he'd ruin both our lives." I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to scream that this was just another manipulation, her latest rewrite of a story where she was always the victim. But another part of me, a part I hated, wanted to hear more. Not because I cared, but because I needed to know what kind of life she spiraled into after she burned ours to the ground. She told me they moved states within weeks of her leaving, that Patrick convinced her to cut ties with everyone, including her own parents, that she worked under a fake name for a while because he was hiding assets from someone. Maybe his wife, maybe someone worse. She said he never hit her, but he threatened her. Often, with money, with secrets, with things I apparently wouldn't understand. I stayed silent. Then she dropped the real bomb. He recorded everything, not just us. He had files on people, important people. And now that he's dead, I think someone's coming for them. Or me. I could almost hear the old version of me, the one who loved her, who would have dropped everything to protect her, trying to wake up. But I wasn't that man anymore. "You think I can help you?" I asked. "After 15 years, you think I'm just sitting here waiting to rescue you from your own disaster?" "No," she whispered. I think you might already be involved." My stomach sank. "What are you talking about?" "There's a box," she said. "A storage unit I forgot about. It's still in your name. He put things there. I don't know what, but I think they know. Someone's been following me, watching." I felt like the floor shifted beneath me. I hadn't heard the word storage in years. I remembered signing a lease back when we were moving out of our first apartment. She kept some old art supplies there, seasonal decorations, maybe wedding junk. I never thought about it again. "Text me the address," I said, without knowing why. "I'm sorry," she added, barely audible, "for all of it." But it was too late for apologies, because now I was part of something I didn't understand. And I had no idea who else was watching. When I opened the rusted orange door of Unit 117, the scent hit me like a wave. Stale air, mold, and something else I couldn't place. Not quite rot, but something that had been sealed away for far too long. The unit hadn't been touched in years. Dust coated every box, cobwebs clung to the corners, and in the dim light of the hallway bulb, I could see one thing very clearly. This was no ordinary storage space. At first glance, it was what I expected. Old furniture, 2 suitcases I vaguely recognized, a stack of frame paintings Melanie never bothered to hang. But toward the back, something stood out. A black hard-shell briefcase, clean, modern, out of place among the time-worn relics of our former life. It wasn't mine. It was locked. I hadn't told Melanie I was going there that night. I needed to see it for myself, to know if she was spinning another story, or if there was actually something buried in our past worth fearing. I lifted the briefcase, surprised by the weight. Whatever was inside, it wasn't clothes or papers. It was solid, heavy. I drove it home, tossing a blanket over it in my back seat like I was smuggling something radioactive. And maybe I was. At home, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the case under a harsh overhead light. I tried prying it open. No luck. I Googled how to break combination locks without destroying the contents. 20 minutes and a bent butter knife later, the latch popped open with a metallic snap. Inside were folders, dozens of them, labeled in neat color-coded tabs, names, accounts, photos, and worst of all, videos. I pulled one of the flash drives from its slot and plugged it into my old laptop. My hands were shaking as the files loaded, the screen filled with thumbnails of surveillance footage, hotel rooms, offices. A woman I didn't recognize entering a building, followed by Patrick. Then another file. Patrick kissing someone who definitely wasn't Melanie. Another folder held spreadsheets of money transfers, offshore accounts, shell companies. He hadn't just been a cheater. He'd been laundering money, recording affairs, blackmailing people. And Melanie was part of it. But here's what wrecked me. Folder 9 was labeled EM and EP, 2008 to 2009. My initials, hers. I clicked. There were recordings of our old apartment, audio files, a video from the corner of our bedroom, from a time when I still believed we were in love. He had bugged us. She had let him. I paused the screen, stared at my own face. I looked young, tired, but trusting, and utterly unaware I was being filmed, violated, used. Suddenly, everything she said clicked into place. She hadn't just left me for love or lust. She had pulled me into something without my consent. Something criminal. And now that Patrick was gone, someone wanted those files, and maybe anyone connected to them. I sat there in my kitchen, blinking back this wave of betrayal that felt worse than the first time she left. She'd wrecked my heart back then. But this could ruin my life. My phone buzzed. It was Melanie. Just one message. Someone tried to break into my building. Please tell me you didn't go to the unit too late. Now I had the case, and someone else knew it. I barely slept that night. Every sound outside my apartment made me flinch. I live in a quiet neighborhood, the kind where people mow their lawns on Saturdays and wave to each other like clockwork. But that night, the silence felt wrong, heavy, like the street was holding its breath. I kept the briefcase under my bed, wrapped in an old quilt like that could somehow shield me from the weight of what was inside. I didn't dare open it again. Just knowing those files existed made my skin crawl. Every voice I heard on those recordings was another person who probably had no idea their life was hanging by a thread, or worse, already ruined. At 8:04 a.m., I got a knock on my door. Not a buzz, not a package, a knock. 3 soft taps, like whoever was on the other side didn't want to draw attention. I froze in the hallway, barefoot, heartbeat in my throat. I didn't speak, I didn't move. I just looked through the peephole. A man in a gray hoodie stood there, mid-30s maybe, athletic build, sunglasses, even though it was cloudy. He wasn't holding anything, not even a phone. He didn't ring the bell, he just stood there for a moment, then leaned forward and said, calmly, like he'd rehearsed it, "Edgar, we need to talk about what you found." I staggered back from the door like it had punched me. He knew my name. I didn't answer, didn't even breathe. After a long pause, he turned and walked away. Not hurried, not nervous, just like a man who knew he'd be back. I waited until he disappeared down the street, then called Melanie. She answered immediately, breathless. "Did you go to the unit?" "He was at my door," I said. Gray hoodie, knew my name, didn't knock like a stranger. She swore under her breath. "That's not good. Edgar, you need to listen to me. Do not go to the police with this." "Oh yeah," I snapped, "because this all looks super legal. Spying, blackmail, stolen data. What part of this isn't a crime?" "It's bigger than that," she said quickly. "You don't know who's involved. Patrick, he was working with people who had connections, not just financial ones, political." I laughed bitterly. "So I'm supposed to what? Sit on a landmine and pretend I don't feel the ticking? No, I'm saying give me the case. Let me disappear with it." That made me pause. "Disappearing is what you're best at. How do I know you're not selling me out again?" "You don't," she said, "but you're already in it. If they think you're keeping that data, you're a liability. To them, to me, to everyone." Her words hung in the air like poison. For 15 years, I hated her for leaving me without warning. But right now, I wasn't sure if that betrayal was worse, or if trusting her again would be the final nail in my coffin. I ended the call without answering. 10 minutes later, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "TikTok, Edgar, you have 48 hours. No name, no signature. But the timer had started, and I was officially out of places to hide. The next morning, I caved. I told myself I just wanted to check one more thing, to be sure I understood what I was holding. But the truth is, I couldn't stop thinking about the files. Not because of what they exposed about Patrick or the people he blackmailed, but because something about that folder with my initials, EM and EP, was gnawing at me. I needed to know if it was just recordings of me and Melanie during our marriage, or if it went deeper. Maybe I was searching for confirmation that she'd manipulated me all along. Maybe I just wanted to see the moment it all started falling apart. So I opened the folder again. My hands didn't shake this time. I felt oddly calm. Number. I clicked through the video thumbnails until I saw one that didn't make sense. The date was wrong. It was from after Melanie left me. Weeks after, in fact. I shouldn't have appeared in it at all. And yet, there I was, sitting alone in a diner booth, drinking black coffee. A timestamp in the corner, camera angle slightly tilted, like it was taken from a ceiling fixture. At first, I didn't remember the moment. But as I watched myself stir the cup, glance at the door, then pull a piece of paper from my coat pocket, it came back. I had gone there after getting a call about a job interview. I was early, nervous. I'd written down a list of things I wanted to say. Strengths, experiences, all the usual nonsense. It was a quiet, forgettable morning. Or so I thought. But now I was seeing it from another lens. Someone had followed me, taped me, filed it away like I was part of an operation I didn't know I was in. There were more clips, me at the pharmacy, me walking out of my building with a gym bag. One of them showed me unlocking my front door from across the street. I hadn't even noticed someone there. I shut the laptop so hard the hinge cracked. My mind was racing. This wasn't just about Melanie anymore. This wasn't just about her ex-boyfriend and whatever criminal web he had spun. This was about me. About the fact that someone had been watching me long after I thought the worst was behind me. For all I knew, they never stopped. I went to the kitchen and ran cold water over my face, trying to steady myself. That's when I noticed it, on the window. A small circle drawn in condensation, right in the corner. I hadn't touched that glass in days. It hadn't rained, and I don't keep plants on the sill. Someone had been there, close enough to breathe on the glass. I backed away. My heart was pounding, but not fast, slow, deep, like it knew something was coming. Then the power cut, lights off, fridge dead, laptop screen black. Every sound in the apartment went silent in an instant. I stood there, still holding the briefcase, listening to the new silence, a kind that didn't feel empty. It felt full of something I couldn't see. My phone lit up in my pocket. A text. You were told not to look. I didn't know if I wanted to scream, cry, or throw the briefcase off a bridge. Instead, I did the one thing I hadn't done in years. I called my brother. I hadn't spoken to my brother in almost 3 years. We'd grown apart after our dad's funeral, a quiet fracture neither of us had the energy to fix. But when the lights cut out and that message flashed on my screen, his name was the only one I could think of. Not because he was sentimental, quite the opposite. Silas was the kind of man who read terms and conditions for fun, who backed into parking spots, who never forgot a birthday, but never got you anything either. He was precise, cautious, and impossible to lie to. If anyone could tell me what the hell I'd gotten myself into, it was him. He picked up on the first ring. No hello, just a gruff, "You okay?" I didn't even ask how he knew something was wrong. I just exhaled and said, "I think I found something I wasn't supposed to." A pause. Then, "How deep are you in?" That question sat in the air like smoke. I told him everything. Well, most of it. Melanie reappearing, the storage unit, the briefcase, the surveillance footage, the guy at my door, the message. I left out the part about the videos of myself. I wasn't ready to say it aloud yet. I thought he'd mock me or lecture me, but instead, Silas said nothing for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, lower, like he was trying not to spook a deer. "Listen to me," he said. "You need to leave your apartment, now, not in an hour, not after lunch." "Right now? Why?" I asked, already pulling on my shoes. "Because if you were being watched then, and you're still being contacted now, that means one of two things. Either someone thinks you're useful, or they think you're disposable." I didn't ask which was worse. He told me to drive to a motel 2 towns over, gave me a name, told me to check in under a fake name, and pay in cash. I didn't argue. I packed the briefcase, my laptop, a change of clothes, and my passport. Not because I planned to run, but because something in me said be ready. Before I left, I checked the peephole again. Nothing. I locked the door, walked to my car, and tried not to sprint. The drive was silent. No music, no calls, just the rhythmic sound of tires on pavement and the dull ache behind my eyes. I felt like I was in someone else's life, just temporarily occupying their panic. The motel was exactly what you'd expect. Faded sign, peeling paint, a vending machine with drinks that probably expired during the Obama administration. But it was quiet. That's all I needed. I checked in as Henry Doyle, paid cash, and went straight to the room. As soon as the door clicked shut behind me, I pulled the curtains and turned on the TV, not to watch, but for background noise. Anything to keep my brain from looping that phrase, "You were told not to look." An hour later, Silas called back. "I ran a trace on Patrick," he said. "You're not going to like it? Try me." He wasn't just blackmailing people, he was hired to. Freelance corporate sabotage, data broker, mostly small-time extortion, until he tried to play bigger. That's when things went dark. So he had enemies. He had employers, Edgar. And if he was keeping data on them too, insurance policies, you can bet someone's out there trying to clean up the mess. There was a beat of silence before Silas added, "You said the briefcase was under your name, right?" "Yeah." "Then they don't need Melanie anymore. They need you." That's when the room phone rang, the motel line. I hadn't given that number to anyone. I stared at it, the ringing drilling into my chest. Silas said quietly, "Don't answer it." But I already had. And the voice on the other end, it wasn't Melanie. It was a woman I didn't recognize. And she said, "Mr. Penley, do not leave the room. You're about to be picked up." I stood frozen with the motel phone still pressed to my ear, the cheap cord twisted in my hand like a noose. The woman's voice was calm, sterile, like she was reading from a prepared script. She repeated the line, "Do not leave the room. You're about to be picked up." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. My body had gone cold. Whoever she was, she knew the name I gave at check-in, a name no one was supposed to know, a name I hadn't used in years, even before this disaster. I hung up without saying a word and backed away from the phone like it might explode. The briefcase was on the bed. The weight of it suddenly felt radioactive. I grabbed it and headed straight for the bathroom. I had just started filling the tub with water, my half-baked plan being to drown the flash drives, when I heard the knock. 3 times. Saw familiar. I froze. Not again, not like the last time, not like the man in the gray hoodie. I stood silently, trying to control my breathing. Then came a second knock, but this time the person spoke. "It's Melanie." I almost laughed. I almost lost it right there. I opened the door fast, not out of courage, but out of a need to confirm this nightmare was still operating within the same reality. And there she was, drenched from the rain I hadn't noticed had started falling, wearing a different coat, and carrying a look I hadn't seen on her face in 15 years. Fear. Real, visceral fear. She stepped in without asking, locked the door behind her, and went straight to the curtains, checking every corner like she was trained to do it. I stared at her, then blurted out, "Did you call this in? Are they your people?" She spun around. "You think I'd walk into this if I still had control?" Number. I'm trying to fix it. I didn't trust her, not even a little. But she looked exhausted, hollowed out. Not the same Melanie who once shattered my life for a man with a bank account and a tan. "They know you opened the drives," she said. "They had eyes on that unit. Patrick kept everything for leverage. When he died, his clients, if you can even call them that, assumed he left a kill switch, something that could expose them if the wrong hands found it." "Well, the wrong hands did," I snapped. "No," she said softly. "The perfect hands did." That stopped me cold. She walked over to the briefcase and laid her hand on it. "They won't kill you, Edgar. Not yet. You're valuable. You've got the files, and they know you don't fully understand what's in them. That makes you usable. Predictable. But that window is closing fast. You're talking like you're one of them." I was. Briefly, long enough to know how they think. Long enough to know Patrick was just the tip of something deeper. I didn't want to ask the next question, but it fell out anyway. "So, what now?" I hand over the case and they... "What, let me go live a peaceful life in the woods?" Melanie gave me a sad smile. "That's not how this ends." She pulled a small burner phone from her pocket and slid it across the table. "There's a contact saved in there. You tell them you'll exchange the drives for immunity, full written immunity. They'll agree. Because they need to bury this more than they need to bury you. But once you do it, you disappear, Edgar. For real. New name, new place. You don't come back." I stared at the phone. "You're insane," I said. "This is insane." But the worst part? It wasn't. It felt inevitable. Melanie was already walking to the door. She stopped, glanced back, and added one last thing. "We're not the bad guys, Edgar. But you're not the victim either. You were just asleep while the fire spread around you." And then she was gone. No goodbye, no apology, just like before. Only this time, she'd left a match, and I had to decide whether to light it or let everything burn. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the motel room with the burner phone in one hand and the briefcase in the other, replaying every moment from the last 15 years. The betrayal, the silence, the fear, the reappearance, and now this final choice. It felt like the last page of a book I never wanted to read in the first place. But the truth is, I already knew what I was going to do. At 5:42 a.m., just before the sun cracked over the horizon, I made the call. I didn't negotiate. I didn't ask questions. I told the voice on the other end exactly what I had, where I was and what I wanted. Immunity, a clean exit, and a promise that this would never touch my life again. I expected silence, maybe laughter, maybe a threat. But instead, there was only one word. Agreed. By noon, I was on a plane. New documents, a new identity, a new country. No fanfare, no explanations. Melanie was gone again. This time, I think for good. She didn't come with me. She never intended to. That was her version of closure, I guess. Her final act of redemption. Or maybe just her way of making peace with the mess she helped create. I won't lie and say everything is perfect now. It's not. I still flinch when my phone rings. I still check over my shoulder in crowded places. But there's something else now too. Something I haven't felt in years. Clarity. For 15 years, I lived with the belief that I was the victim of one woman's betrayal. But the truth is, I let myself stay frozen in time. I let her define the worst part of my life, until I finally stepped out of the shadows and chose something better. Now, I live by the ocean. I work under a different name. I walk in the mornings. I sleep through the night. And no one watches me. And maybe, just maybe, that's what freedom really is. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild story. Now it's your turn. What's one real historical event that completely changed the way you see the world? Drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more unbelievable stories. Only on Reddit Confessions.